my topic. This article, it's a little long, but I found it interesting. So basically it's an article about like some kind of weird funeral traditions they have in different places. So I figured I'd go through these and see what you guys think. They say to respect the dead, but that respect can look pretty weird sometimes. The unfortunate fact of life is that eventually it ends. When it does, it becomes necessary to dispose of the earthly remains of the dearly departed.
We like to fuck them into the earth.
It's unconventional. Over human history, we've come up with various and increasingly creative ways to conduct funerals. In a bit of continuation to our earlier list of weddings, apparently they're linking other stuff they did here. Let's now explore some of the more strange and unusual funeral traditions from around the world. Number one, oh God, I don't know how to pronounce this. Famadihana. The Famadihana, or turning of the bones ceremony of the Malagasy people in Madagascar, isn't a funeral per se. However, it involves the dead bodies of your loved ones, so we're starting the list off with it. Every few years, the Malagasy exhume what remains of the corpses of their ancestors and relatives. And my stupid phone on this website always has to reset. Okay. Okay, every few years the Malagasy exhume what remains of the corpses of their ancestors and relatives. They wrap the remains in clean cloth and rewrite their names on the bundle. Then it's time to lift the corpse up and dance to raucous music while parading the dead body around its tomb. When the ceremony ends, the corpse is reburied to wait for the next Famadihana. The ceremony isn't intended to desecrate the body. Instead, it celebrates the life of the deceased. It's important because it's our way of respecting the dead. It's also a chance for the whole family from across the country to come together, a Malagasy man called Jean-Pierre says. Clearly, the Malagasy don't want their ancestors getting bored in their graves. Now, that one, it sounds kind of cool, but also it sounds like a lot of work. You actually have to, like, dig up the grave,
Like,
get their bones out of there, clean their bones. But then you have a party, I guess, which sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
Would you guys want to participate in something like that? Or does it just seem like too much work?
I don't know. Maybe the work makes you like respect more. Like you're like you're putting in the work. You're showing some like actual effort.
Yeah,
that's true.
Plus, while you're doing it, you can like tell the stories and do whatever. So
yeah, and you're paying respect the whole time because you're like digging them up so you can show them, the party and
one last party, one more party.
Yeah.
And it's like, like they're keeping my bones clean.
Yeah.
Get some clean bones.
It's, do you think they bury people like 6 feet under like they do here? Because that seems like it just, or do you think they're actually like, they get a backhoe for this event? Like, I don't know. That's the part I kind of wonder about.
Yeah.
I'd probably do crypt keeping if I had to do that every
year. Okay, number 2. Oh, God. This website sucks. At least on my phone. Number 2 is called hanging coffins. After a person is laid to rest in their coffin, the box then usually goes into the ground or somewhere else out of sight. Not so in some parts of Indonesia, the Philippines, and China. Instead, the people of the regions will hang the coffins on steep cliffs or hill faces. There, the coffins will remain in plain sight. There's a couple of reasons for the cliffside graveyards. The first is simply to keep the corpses out of reach of both animals and potential grave robbers. On the other hand, the practice is usually reserved for the most distinguished and respected members of the community. It's a way to commemorate the dead. If their coffin is hanging from a cliff, they were kind of a big deal. In some places, the people also believe that it's easier for the dead to pass into the afterlife if they're higher up from the ground, as long as there's no sudden landslide to bring them crashing down. That's what I'm afraid of. Like, it seems like you're just begging.
Then you just get buried under rocks.
Right? I guess. It seems like you're just begging for the coffin to fall off the cliff down below.
I'd be interested to see some pictures of that. I hadn't heard of that one.
Yeah, it does sound cool.
I know there was like...
I wish this article had pictures of it, but they don't.
I believe there's some Native Americans that would put their dead up in trees. So that's kind of nice.
And just let them rot in the tree.
I don't know I don't remember all the details.
Number 3 is called smoked mummies. The Anga people of Papua New Guinea mummify their dead. You might be thinking of the famous Egyptian mummies, but that's not quite what this is all about. When a person dies, the Anga will place the corpse in a contraption that resembles something between a chair and a cage. Then they take the whole thing into a hut where the body is smoked for at least 30 days. Yes, smoked, like you would smoke salmon. At the end of the process, the corpse is bone dry and highly resistant to decomposition. The Anga then hang the cage with the body in it from a high cliff, much like with the hanging coffins. And just like with them, the hanging of the mummy is a sign of respect and reverence towards the departed. The ritual is rarely practiced today, but many mummies from the days gone by still hang by Anga villages.
Huh, that's interesting.
Do you think like at points where they're smoking them, they're like, "That smells pretty good. Might have to try some."
It reminds me of that Futurama where he has like the mummified like Changus the Great or the 19th or whatever. And he's like, I was going to eat that mummy. This is an outrage.
Next is sky burial. In some parts of the Tiber and Mongolia, we find the tradition of sky burials. No, they don't load their dead into rockets or catapults and fling them up to the sky, but that would be pretty cool. That's how I want to go.
Catapult.
Instead, the remains of the dead are taken apart. That's to say the corpse is chopped up. Then the parts of the body are taken to a tall, barren mountaintop and left there. Vultures and other animals will come and pick the bones clean, naturally disposing of the body. The Buddhist tradition of these areas teach that a person's spirit leaves the body immediately at the moment of death. What's left behind is nothing but an empty vessel made of dead meat. Feeding the body to animals is also seen as the person's last gesture of goodwill on earth. Allowing animals to eat the body is regarded as a charitable donation towards a greater circle of life. There's also a practical element to sky burials. The ground in the Tibetan mountains is often too hard to dig, and wood and fuel are scarce. Sky burials are therefore an economic way to dispose of the dead. So that one's not too fancy. Just chop them up and throw them up on a mountain.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I kind of thought, like, you know, we kind of waste our dead by burning them and burying them. Like, you could just, like, throw us in a grinder and feed us to dogs or something. You know.
Check this on your driver's license if you'd like to be dog meat.
Your family will have to consent at the time of your death. It's what he wanted. It's what he wanted.
The next one is called fantasy coffins. The Ghanaian funeral ceremony doesn't really differ from any other Christian funeral. It's the coffin itself that's strange. It's become a recent tradition in Ghana to bury the dead in an elaborate coffin that represents their lives. A fisherman might get buried in a fish or boat-shaped coffin, while a rich businessman might get to take a trip 6 feet under in a look-alike of the latest BMW model. The fantasy coffin tradition started some 60 years ago. It was promoted originally by carpenters around the city of Accra, but it quickly spread through the country. Now, I kind of like the idea of this one, but I feel like if you get too fancy, like then grave robbers are just going to go, pilfer your coffin or something.
Like they're going to try to get like a wooden BMW and do what with it?
Well, it depends what, like, some people might like have jewels or something on it and get really fancy. I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty elaborate there.
What would your fantasy coffin be?
Fantasy coffin.
I was thinking mine could be like Batman themed, and like I'm buried in like a really cool like Batman outfit. And then instead, and like basically the regular coffin part goes up to my neck, and then there's the extension with the bat ears.
So basically, it's like Tutankhamun, but you got the face exposed.
Yeah, I guess so.
Terrible idea. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything I'm like super passionate about that I think I should just like take with me to the grave.
You like chess?
I'm a little bit more like those guys just chop me up and put me out for the vultures, man.
You could have like a chess themed coffin.
I remember seeing one where like you know how Kiss has like
the
marketed
Kiss
everything.
Or whatever.
Yeah, you can get a Kiss kit.
I don't know if that's what they call them.
I don't know.
I wouldn't have a perfect burial.
Yeah, I have no interest in like trying to take anything with me, or it's like we're all going to be forgotten. It's like it just doesn't matter, you know.
That's true. Like the only people that are really remembered are like famous people.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the idea where they have a party or something.
Yeah. So far, like the bone party sounds like the coolest one.
Yeah, the bone party where they dig you up and party with you a few times.
Okay, the last one here is called skull burial. It's always nice to have a memento of the loved ones who passed on. The residents of the island nation of Kiribati take the idea one step further, though. Once a person has died, their relatives will lay out the body in their home. The body lies in state for up to 12 days, depending on how important the person is. Oh, that guy wasn't important. Just one day
It's
for
been a
him.
couple of days, yeah, but he was an ass.
After the display period is over, the body is buried. Nothing too weird here so far. After a few months, though, the relatives of the deceased will return to the grave. They dig up the body, decapitate it, and take the skull home. It seems like they should have just decapitated it before they buried the rest of it. Save them some work. The skull receives a thorough cleaning and polishing before going to its final resting place on display in the relative's home. According to local beliefs, preserving the skulls make it possible for spirits of the dead to join the native god Naka. Suppose it's also nice to have your grandmother always watching over you, even if it's just her skull on a shelf. That was a little weird, but
I kind of like it.
I would be okay with it, I guess.
I feel like it would help normalize death. Like you grow up around it, you'd be around it, you'd see it, you'd be like, "Oh, that's what death is."
I will say, like this one, the Bone Party one, and just like the Mexican Day of the Death shows it, like they do treat death a little differently than we do. They kind of celebrate it.
Yeah, whereas we just kind of hide it.
We just kind of hide it and fear it. I mean, I guess everybody fears it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We it's more of a taboo. I don't know if it's a taboo, but we
We have like an unhealthy kind of view of
yeah.